good afternoon. I'd like to invite those of you out in the lobby and all to find your seat. We're about 2 minutes away from starting time, and so we'll be ready to go. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you and thank you for coming for this service for Robert Rowland and all the friends and family. I know a lot of the family from right around here. A few years ago, I was just kind of evaluating everything we do as a church and why we do it. And during that time, we had a funeral service, memorial service, celebration of life service, whatever you want to call it. And I began to question, what's that for? And I came up, I think, with some good answers. And I wanted to share that with you because a lot of people nowadays just decide not to have a service. And I think it's important to have a service. First of all, to remember the life of the one that passed away. God gave everybody a time on this earth, and it's just good to remember who they were, what they meant to us. Second of all, to be a comfort to those that are left behind. No matter how long a life they might live, there's a tender spot or a hurt when they're gone. And thirdly, is to glorify the Lord Jesus Christ. You know, every one of us are going to meet death someday. And we need to know Jesus. That's the only way to be prepared for that. But we're going to begin today with a prayer, and right after this prayer, Brother Roy Deaver, who was his pastor, known him many, many years, is going to come and present the message today. Lord, I do come before you and ask that you'd help every heart to be attentive to those things that you would have that are important today. And Lord, I thank you for the life of Robert Rowland, though I never knew him. I knew he's a special individual that you created, and I've met his family and met some of his friends, and know that he was a special person. And we ask, Lord, that all that's done today might glorify the Lord Jesus Christ. Give grace and ability to those that will speak, to those that will sing, be with the video and sound and all of those things. And Lord, may the family be helped and encouraged. May Jesus Christ be exalted. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Family, as has already been mentioned, I'd like to welcome each and every one to this memorial service. We've come together this afternoon to celebrate the life, to honor the memory of Robert Rowland. I'm honored personally that the family has asked me to have a part in this service. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Roy Deaver. I serve as minister for the Rome Church of Christ, and I am a long-time friend of the family. I started to say I can't believe that when we first came together, all of us were at least 50 years younger. It's been a while. It's been a while. It hasn't been that long since I've seen any of them, but in fact, Paige and Bob came over to church a couple of times this last summer, and most recently within just the last few weeks. Got to visit for a few moments, and it's glad to have that opportunity. But our memory, our acquaintance goes back a long, long time, and that brings to my mind many, many special memories. And I'll go into a few of those in just a moment. But again, I want to thank each of you for your presence today. It is evidence of your love and your respect for the Rowland family. I do want to thank the church here for allowing the use of their facilities for this service. I also want to thank the pastor for allowing me the opportunity to use his pulpit. Our purpose is to celebrate the life, to honor the memory of Robert Rowland, and we will do exactly that. We'll pay tribute to his life, we'll honor his memory, and we will celebrate his victory. As I see Paige and Kelly down here at the front, I may talk more than I'm supposed to. I'll try not to. I'll try to be very, very careful and considerate of the time. But I remember that Paige and my daughter were very, very good friends for several years. In fact, I guess you could say best friend, probably. And Kelly, I don't want to embarrass you, but Kelly was our first accident at our first church skating party. Probably our last one, maybe because of that, Phil. And
I still have that scar.
you still have your scar. My wife and I were talking about that, wondered if you still did. That goes back a ways. And of course, Brother Lance was so special to my wife. She was so prejudiced and so partial to him. He, as a child, a young child, would come down to mow our yard when he was really too little to do that. He had to take lots of breaks, watch television quite a bit, and he really enjoyed the macaroni and cheese that my wife served during those breaks. So that's just a few connections that go a long, long ways back. But I love the family, have for many, many years. We continue to think about them, continue to pray for you. And I think it's probably appropriate at this time to say something to try to comfort the family as well, those closest to Bob and those who are most touched by his death. I do know that your family has had its share of tragedies, probably more than its share, but there's also many beautiful memories. And I would encourage you to hold on to those memories. Hold on to those memories. Talk about them often. As you talk about them today, and I know some of you are going to share memories today, as you talk about special times together and talk about special memories today, it may be a little bit difficult and it may even bring a tear to your eye. But if you keep talking about and holding on to those special memories and talk about them throughout the years, in time, instead of bringing a tear to your eyes, those memories will bring a smile to your face. I'd also like to say to the family that as you look around, you know you've been meeting and greeting people for a while here this afternoon, that you do have many special friends who care about you, who love you, and who would be willing to bear your burden of sorrow or help share your burden of sorrow any way possible, any way that they possibly could. And those friends are praying for you. They're praying for your strength. They're praying for your comfort. they're praying for your peace. Remember that you are loved. I'd also like to remind the family, and actually each of us, that God takes care of his children. He certainly does. He provides for our every single need in a way that the psalmist David wrote in Psalms 23, much the same way that a shepherd takes care of his own sheep, God takes care of us. Everything that we need, he sees, he knows, he understands, and he provides for our every need. I would like you to think about the words of the 23rd Psalm for just a moment, and I'm going to ask you to read with me, or recite with me aloud if you like, Psalm 23, just as a reminder of God's constant care. 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Robert, Bob, as most called him, Rowland, 88 years of age, passed away in Dallas, Texas on October the 15th of this year. He was born in Greenwood, Texas, August the 2nd, 1937. He grew up in Boyd, graduated from Boyd High School. He married the high school sweetheart, Gracie Bridges. Later, Bob served in the U.S. Army in Korea. Most of his career was in the insurance industry, including owning 2 insurance agencies. He raised his family in Rome, Texas. Later moved back to Boyd and continued to live there until his health failed near the end of his life. Robert never met a stranger and was always known for his sense of humor, always sharing a good joke. In high school, Bob was voted most friendly and elected class president. He spent a lifetime helping others, and he was very generous. Some would say he was generous to a fault. Bob was a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous. At the time of his death, he had been sober for 34 years.
Amen.
Bob, in his early adult life, definitely had a problem with alcohol. Everybody knows that. It's no secret. And I've been told that it's okay to talk about that. That, of course, caused problems for himself, caused problems for his family and for others. But he was able, with God's help, to overcome that particular problem and that particular issue. I use the word overcome very deliberately, because in Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 7, there is a beautiful, beautiful picture of heaven. I'll not read that description at this time, but God is there, Christ is alive, God is the light of it, no more sorrow, no more tears, no more pain, no more sorrow, no more suffering. Verse 7, at the end of that particular portion of the description says, he that overcomes shall inherit these things. Every one of us has problems or issues of some kind. Every one of us has difficulties. But with God's help and a desire and prayer and communication with God, we will be blessed as we overcome these things. So Bob can be an example of what it means to overcome. He had a lifelong love of music, and he spent his later years stringing his favorite songs. Other interests included golf, spending time with friends and family. especially the love of his life, his granddaughter Olivia. He was a Christian man, and he attended church regularly. He considered the Rome Church of Christ to be his home, and as I mentioned, we were blessed recently to have him and Paige come over for a visit and get to spend some time with them. Bob was preceded in death by his parents, Terrell and Gladys Rowland, sisters, Alvarine Ford and Nina Bell, his wife, Gracie Rowland, and a son, Lance Rowland. He's survived by a daughter, Kelly Brown of Dallas, a daughter, Paige Barrow, and son-in-law, Shane Barrow of Paradise, a granddaughter, Olivia Rowland of Colorado Springs, as well as beloved cousins, nieces, nephews, and other extended family. Bob has fought a good fight. He's run his race. He's kept the faith. Members of the family will share a few special memories in just a few moments. I would like to leave you with this thought. Now, this is a challenge for me, and I don't know if I'm able to adequately verbalize the picture that I have in my head, but I'm going to try. I have to ask maybe you to use your imagination and try to visualize what I try to explain. There is a short prayer containing only 4 lines that many parents have taught their children as a sort of bedtime prayer. It goes like this, and you may remember. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. That little children's prayer is just as valid for adults. Last Wednesday evening, it's my understanding that Bob Rowland passed away peacefully in his sleep. The words, if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. That is precisely what happened last Wednesday evening. According to a story that Jesus told in Luke chapter 16, there was a man who died, and the angels came to carry him up to heaven. Last Wednesday night, the picture that I have in my head is of angels coming to escort Bob to heaven. He may have thought, if he had already fallen asleep deeply, he may have even been dreaming. He may have even thought he was dreaming. No way to know, no way to tell. Possibly, and I'm using my imagination for this part of it, what's happening? Am I dreaming? Am I alive? Am I dead? Something is very different. This is obviously not where I went to sleep. Everything is so beautiful. Everything is so bright. Who are these beautiful beings around me? Are they angels? Never seen one before. This is definitely not where I laid down and went to sleep. Well, the angel escort, no doubt, assured Bob, this is no dream. Your work is over. It's time to come home. Bob's family has explained to me that there's no doubt that Bob is at home in heaven with Jesus. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I can't think of a better way to end a life. Lie down in peace and comfort, to pleasant dreams, and wake up in heaven. It doesn't get any better than that.
thank you all for coming. I'm Kelly. I'm the oldest daughter, so it's Kelly, and then my brother Lance, who, as you all know, we lost back in 2001, and then Paige, who's the baby. You just heard sing. So and that was a special request from Dad, which we're going to talk more a little bit later about the reason we did the music, which is, anyway, I'm getting out of order here. But, Paige and I have been extremely busy the past few days, and if any of you, we owe a lot of return texts and calls and stuff like that, and just, it's like, wow, we forgot. It's been about 20 years since we did our 2 funerals, and forgot how much work is involved. I mean, you know, it's labor of love, but it's been hard. And we also realized that when Mom and Lance died, it was a pre-slideshow era, really, you know. And so we thought we had a lot to do, but we put a lot into the slideshow, which you guys will see in a few moments. I'm really not sad about Dad being gone. I know that may sound terrible, but I think Rory summed it up, you know. I mean, he's way better off than we are right now. And he was ready. He was ready. He even said the day that happened. And I'll just tell you a little, and just for those of you who don't know the story, I mean, he was in the hospital for 8 days recently. Had a routine doctor's appointment, just his 6-month checkup with his VA doctor. And he'd been going downhill, and we knew there was something wrong. And Dad was really looking forward to that appointment because he's like, I've got some questions for him. Got some issues, you know. We were both looking forward to it because we knew about last 4 to 6 weeks there'd been kind of a decline. And I thought, because he wasn't getting out and walking as much, and I'd been really getting on to him, which I apologized to his, you know, his shell that was left behind right before he left. I'm so sorry, Dad. I got on to you a lot about getting out and walking, which he hadn't been doing, and I realized now he was going into congestive heart failure. So anyway, he, so that at the visit, his heart rate was 127, and the doctor kind of did everything. I said, well, he just stood up and waved. That winded him, and then he moved over to the chair. You know, I think it'll go down. So he took it a few minutes later, like, no, still 127. He was like, we're going to stop right now, and you guys need to go to the ER right now. Do not pass go. So, like, okay. And so we did, and then that turned into an 8-day hospital stay. Texas Health Resources in Dallas, and who had saved his life the previous year, and they were amazing. But anyway, he was ready to go. So he had said even that day, getting him back into, they'd set him up, and when I got there, and his head was, you know, he was asleep, he was very worn out, and he said, yeah, I said, are you okay? And he said, yeah, they had me out walking, and I'm just so tired, can you get me back in bed? I was like, well, let's eat something first. Paige had brought food the night before that he loved from Chicken Express, and so let's heat up a little bit of that that's left over, and he did, and then got into bed. And as I was doing it, I was like, Dad, you ready for this all be over with? And he said, I am, I really am. And I said, and just to kind of clarify that he meant that, I said, you ready to go be with Jesus and Mom and Paige? And he said, I'm so sorry, that was a Mom and Lance. I don't know why I said that, I'm talking about Paige. And he said, yeah, I really, really am. So there's no doubt he was ready to go, and then it ended up being just a couple hours later. And the doctors had assured us we weren't that close, but we were. And the only thing that I'm mad at him about is that he knew that Olivia was flying in the next day. Olivia hadn't seen him since Christmas. They talked all the time. They just had a really good visit a few days before on the phone. He knew she was coming. And then Shane had a really, really big project going on over in Dallas. And just, he knew they were both coming the next day. And the doctor had assured us. I even said, are we good here? You know, his niece is flying in. He said, oh yeah, his granddaughter, I keep saying that, I'm sorry, my words aren't working great. Yeah, anyway, I said, you know, his only granddaughter is flying in Thursday, this was on Tuesday, and he said, oh, yeah, we're not at that point at all. He goes, does she need to be on the next flight? Absolutely not. I've got some patients in the ICU that is the case, but no, we're good. They were even talking about him having years left. They were wanting to put a defibrillator in the next day, had him on the schedule actually kind of without talking to us. Anyway, he didn't want that. So that's the only regret I think that we have as a family. Just that if you just waited a little bit longer, Olivia and Shane would have been able to see him for the last time. But I think the relationship was good, and he knew, Anyway, so, that's funny. That wasn't in my notes, so beware. May cut out some stuff. So one of the things, one of the categories I had to kind of talk about, and Paige and I didn't finish telling. So we've been really, really busy, and this was kind of the thing that we didn't get done till the last minute, finalizing what we were going to say, because we did want to say a few words, and Paige and I had planned to talk and try to not make sure we were not stepping on each other's toes. And we ran out of time and didn't do that. So please accept my apologies. She told me I could go first as the eldest, and so please. But anyway, there's not like there's a lack of material, with him, right? So, but where was I going to go with that? So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was just his nicknames. Robert George Rowland was his birth name, and he really liked out there because his two sisters got some kind of not quite as traditional names that their mother named. And apparently I was told as a first granddaughter on the way, there were my grandmother apparently was pretty creative, Grandma Rowland, was pretty creative about coming up with names. And apparently they sent some suggestions with the first grandbaby on the way that I'm just happy that my parents overruled. But anyway, so Dad's name, Robert George Rowland, named after both of his grandparents on either side, grandfathers on either side. The family, Sherry Joe and Margaret, little Robert George, is where the family called him a lot. SOB, Sick Old Bob, the AA people know about that. He wore that proudly. And he got his 34th ship recently when he was in Dallas, not his home group, but you write it on the board if you want to get a chip. This was actually last year when he got out of the hospital, and he had me write it up there, Sick Old Bob. And it's a huge group, and there was like a long list, and he ended up being first because he had the most number of years that night. But the guy that got up and introduced, he goes, okay, Sick Old Bob, it was 33 years last year. And he goes, well, first of all, he goes, okay, this is how it was written down, I'm not calling him that. But Dad he wore that proudly. Roro was one of his high school nicknames. Hobnob Bob, which I thought Andy and Lori's boys, they always called him that, but Andy told me a while ago he thought that came from Big Lynn. That's another subject, Big Lynn nicknames. $5 Bob was one of his nicknames, and that's when he first got into AA. So this was 1991-ish at the Decatur group, and there were two Bobs about the same time. So to distinguish them, Dad became known as $5 Bob. How many of you, anybody here that remembers that? And then there was, as opposed to Parking Lot Bob. So $5 Bob came from, Parking Lot Bob, I'll just say, he kind of had, his low was pretty low, and he was living behind a dumpster at Jack in the Box, I think, in Bridgeport or something. So he was Parking Lot Bob, and rose above that with sobriety. And then Dad was pretty low coming into his beginning of his AA, his sobriety too, and he kind of sunk down and financially. And so a bunch of them would go to the Dairy Queen in Bridgeport and have coffee, the AA guys. And Dad was a big tipper. He liked to flirt with waitresses, and he liked to tip well. And so they just got coffee, and that was it at Dairy Queen. So not a lot of money, and it was in 1991. And so his sponsor, who has passed on, wish that he could be here now, but Dad put the tip down. They left and get out there, and Austin said, do you realize how much tip you put down? And he said, yeah, and it was a $5 bill for a cup of coffee, and which actually he would have been fine, but he was, didn't mean, so he became known as $5 Bob, and then it was Parking Lot Bob. And his favorite nickname of all was Granddad, and he wore that proudly. He even became known as that within our family. He would say to Paige and I and Shane, okay, Granddad here, that was his favorite. So, one of the other things I want to talk about, some of his sayings, and if we'd had more time to prepare, would have solicited more of this, because there were a million. You guys could, come up with a bunch of them, but he just had a funny way with words. Shazam was one of the ones that just kind of was on repeat the last few years. Everything was, well, Shazam, that one was kind of ready for a new one to come along myself, because he kind of ran that one to the ground. But my favorite niece, I have that in this category because my mom's side of the family is very extensive, lot of us, and he had a bunch of nieces, and so it kind of came out later that he was telling everyone they were his favorite niece, and then it kind of, two were present at the same time a few years back, and his face just looked like, oh, how am I going to get out of this one? So it became a family joke, my favorite niece, Julie. Julie's one of them. She used it the other day, telling my favorite niece something or other. Really, if we'd had our little speeches ready in advance, I would have checked with Mr. Pugh to kind of prove. It's kind of hard I've said to several people, do you have any good dad sayings? I'm like, well, not that we can say in here in the church. He could be a little off color. So I hope that I'm not gonna offend. Please forgive me. He at the hospital the other day, he was on a diuretic, and they came in and he told the kidney doctor, yeah, I've been peeing like a racehorse. And the guy goes, well, that's what we want, peeing like a racehorse. And then he told his nurse later, yeah, I've been passing gas like a pack mule, and so far it's been safe. The nurses loved him. My favorite, and this is really where I need to ask for forgiveness in advance, my favorite was, well, I'm off like a prom dress. And then one of them was life is good. He liked to say life is good, and I think Paige is going to say more about that a little bit later, but that was a saying he said regularly. Let's see, I'm going to skip over some things here. One of the things I was going to say too about, I had a category of dad's pet peeves. Very long list again, and I just, with everything we've been doing, putting things together, didn't have time to really think about it all, but there were many, many pet peeves, and you didn't have to guess that he was irritated about something. Recently, one of them was in my car, the sunglass holder thing. I drive an older car that's still going, but the sunglass thing pops down on a little clip. I need to talk to you about that, Olivia. But I just have it taped, and it got hot this summer and it started falling down, and so that just irritated him to no end that would fall down. What else was I going to say? Well, long funerals, that's what I was going to say, and I've already kind of messed this up, but Paige and I really intended and told that, the intent is to be short and sweet, because Dad really did not like long. He had a patience problem, really. Yeah. He had become a brand snob in his later year, which cracks us up, It started with bananas. He told me a few years ago, was it Dole or I can't remember. There was a certain type of banana, that sticker on a banana, and he was like, they're the best. And I'm like, really? Special treat? But so I bought bananas recently at Aldi, and they had some weird name, and he was afraid to eat them. I don't know where this came from. So I started I saved some of the brand. I think it was Del Monte actually. Anyway, I saved some stickers and started just putting those on his bananas. He was fine with that. And then his cereal, I became really picky about his cereal. Again, this is not a man. You guys knew him. Would you think that he's a designer? No. But he became very picky about certain brands. So his cereal, he liked Frosted Flakes, and then the little squares, he called them the Chunkies. That's what we started calling them. But I'm a bargain shopper, and I go to Aldi, and I started getting it's like $7 for a little box of cereal nowadays, So I started getting the other. Well, he told me this is not as good. So again, I'm giving a lot of my character defects here. But I saved the Kellogg's box, and I would just and again, there's no problem if it came out of a Kellogg's box. So, sorry, Dad. this is a really funny one. He became a germaphobe, and he told, he would tell, Paige and I talked about that. I'm a germaphobe. It's like, and let's be honest, my dad was not exactly great in the hygiene department in his latter years. We had to have some talks, and we had to make some adjustments and all that. That just practiced it, but he kind of was. I think he had some OCD, and he was kind of germaphobe. So during one of his health issues last year, there was a wound care specialist coming, and a gentleman from it, who was a PA anyway, he would come in, and he would always shake Dad's hand. And one time after Dad goes, I wish he wouldn't always shake my hand, because I don't know where his hands have been. And I thought, he needs to be worried about your hands way more. But yeah, he just kept us laughing. Let's see, I'm not gonna do all of this. Let's see, skipping over some stuff. He was a jokester and prankster. You guys all knew that. He had the ability to wiggle his ear. You guys know that. I'd have him do that a lot for the nurses. Do the trick, Dad. And even toward the end, he'd still do it, and they all got a kick out of it. He learned how to do that as a kid. He apparently read it in either Huckleberry Finn. Am I doing good? I haven't stepped. Okay, good. There's a lot of material, so I think Paige has a whole other stuff. I'm nearly finished. So apparently he read in Huckleberry Finn or something when he was a kid in elementary school about wiggling their ear, and so he tried it, and sure enough, he could do it. Did all of you see him do that? And he could alternate. He could do one, the other. And growing up as a kid, we'd be in trouble. I'd be in trouble for something, and and then he'd wiggle his ear, and it's like, okay, it's gonna be okay. And he had to have a straight face when he did it too. He couldn't smile. But prankster, going back to prankster, apparently when he was in high school, there had been a tragic accident, and one of their classmates or somebody was killed in a wreck, and so I can't think of names. Anyway, it was Mike Anderson's mother. Yeah, I think it was. And his wife. Joan. I think it was Joan, because she sang beautifully and all that. I think it was her that was singing at this funeral. And Dad told her beforehand, he goes, I'm going to wiggle my ear at you, which would have cracked. Oh, Roro, don't do it. So he had her kind of scared. And so she did look at him, because they're singing at this very tragic, very, anyway, untimely death. And he looked at her, and she looked at him, and he said he just sat there and smiled. So he was a good boy. I was going to tell the story about him falling through the roof. I think I'm going to skip that for brevity. You all probably know about that, but yeah, I've decided to go explore an old abandoned building in Boyd from his childhood, and fell through lots of falls. I'm going to skip over that part. Yeah, I'm going to end on music. And Paige and I did, we talked enough to know that I said, I want to talk about his love for music. She said, no, that's one of mine. So we had a little powwow, and we realized, and if Olivia had decided to come up and speak, that would very much be one of Olivia's subjects as well. My dad was very much defined by his love of music, and started when we were kids. Paige was talking about the old stereo we had back in the 70s. It looked like a coffin, kind of, actually. It raised up, and it kind of all raised up, and that's where the record player was, and the records and everything. And so, again, Paige may cross over with this too, but we have lots and lots of memories as in our childhood of songs. Some of the ones, Peter, Paul and Mary, Marty Robbins is a big one that we listen to in the car a lot. Fats Domino, Patsy Cline, all the country and western old greats, Merle Haggard, and all of those. My favorite one, the one that I identified with most was Bill Black's Combo. And Dad and I had a little bit of a a tiff over something several years ago. In fact, it was when Mom was still alive. We had a woman as a misunderstanding about something, and I really had my feelings hurt, and I guess anyway, we just didn't talk for a while, and he found a Bill Lex combo. I think it was a cassette, because we went all the way through the vinyl 8-track with all the clubs, where you get the free, all of that, and then cassettes, and then most recently Olivia had gotten him into Apple Music, so he was getting pretty good at it too. He could just play anything on demand. But Dad giving me that Bill Lex combo thing, because he found it and he knew it was real important to me, and it just instantly healed our little riff, which was really just a misunderstanding that Patty actually helped with that way back then, about just not knowing what the other side, what had happened. But I realized recently, and it's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, is just, everybody knows Dad loved music, but I've realized recently that it was his love language. And in his, latter time where he really was spending most of his time in bed, he had his phone, and it was Facebook, and it was listening to songs on Apple Music. And then also things would come up on Facebook as well. I'd go, Dad, where'd that one come from? I don't know, just popped up, And so, if he sent any of you songs, if something just resonated with him, he had to share it. And he would be like, nurses would come in that were busy and go, you gotta listen to this song, something you really, really wanted to share. And one of them was, he sent Kay Clark, my mom's sister. He told me the other day, he goes, yeah, I sent Kay a song. I hope it doesn't offend her. What? You did what? And he said, yeah, it was Diggy Liggy Low. Did I get that right? Olivia helped to clarify that a while ago, because does anybody know that song? Anyway, and I was like, what? Why would she be offended? Oh, well, she lived with us for a little while when, like about the time I was a baby, or maybe before. She was younger, and she was working at Dad's company, and he was out in the field. He was a field man, he was in sales, and she would ride in with him. They'd ride in together, but then he may or may not have. So they had a neighbor that Kay would ride home with, and apparently that was his favorite song. Played it, to ad nauseum, and she would come in complaining about it. So anyway, he remembered that, and came across it the other day and sent it to Kay. So I don't remember. I didn't really have a wrap up. I think I had a good finale, but I've gone way over the time that I was going to speak. So I hand it off to Paige now, and then Paige and I are going to talk specifically about why we have the music choices that go along with the slideshow. Then we'll talk about that after Paige. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. That was the objective.
Even Roy talked longer than that. Hello, everybody. I want to say thank you, everyone, for coming. It's just it's bittersweet because it's a hard day, but at the same time, we were all looking forward to seeing all of you and all the people from different walks of his life. We thought probably on a Monday it might not. People are working and stuff, but I'm still really happy for all of you that did come. And I did this right before the service started, so I may be more disorganized than you were. You did a good job. You did a good job. You did. Anyway, we've dreaded this day for a long time. Unfortunately, it finally came, and Roy told you everybody knows, but the history of my dad's drinking and all that, and it was so ironic. Kelly and I would joke and talk every now and then, say, can you believe that, our mother who never took a drop of alcohol in her life and was at church every time the doors opened and then cussed, and she was killed by a drunk driver at age 60. And then my dad, who lived a different kind of life for most of his life, or for half of his life, he you know, he lived to be a ripe old age of 88, so we used to kind of just say, can you believe this? You know, it's pretty ironic, but anyway, but we knew this day was coming, and anyway, we're glad that he got to live such a long life. You know, just wanted to start out by saying that, you know, after Dad got sober, he really, even though he wasn't, you know, always there for us, you know, when we were growing up, after he got sober, he was really, you know, he really stepped up to the plate. And then after Mom died, you know, we were of course devastated, and I was 3 months pregnant with Olivia when my mom got killed, and he just really stepped up to the plate, and he was really there for all of us, for Lance, Kelly, me, and, you know, and of course Olivia too, but anyway, Shane and I, we lived in Fort Worth for 20 years, 15, 17, I can't, anyway. Then we moved to Paradise in 2017, and you know, Dad just lived 10 minutes away from us, and I mean, we saw him and everything, of course. You know, he was a regular at our house because of Olivia, of course. But when we moved to Paradise, we got to see a lot more of him, and you know, it was just really nice to be able to. Shane and I had a lot of great laughs and great food and great times, and he used to come to our house every Saturday morning for breakfast. Remember that, Shane? And we would go out to eat a lot, and we went to church together. We all went to church together for many, many years, and you know, just really, you know, shows just a testimony of what God's capable of doing, you know, in someone's life. I mean, you know, I was always Daddy's girl, and you know, even though he wasn't always around, he, you know, obviously I had good memories. We all have good memories of him, even when we were growing up, even though things weren't always great. And he was really just kind of gone a lot. But we all have special memories of him. He's always lots of fun, and I forgot where I was going with that. But I'll just tell a little story about that. When I was, I'm probably first grade. You know, ran and jumped.
Oh, yeah.
First grade. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. He was just, you know, he was a character, and he was just kind of unique from a lot of dads. He was definitely not a boring dad at all. And I remember, you know, we had this thing when I was like in first grade, probably kindergarten, first grade, and it was his idea, I'm sure, but you know, run and jump, kind of like the, you know, Dirty Dancing scene, you know, from, you know, and he would catch me in midair, and anyway, so he was picking me up one day from school, and at Rome Elementary, and the teacher was standing there, and she saw us do that, and he told that story so many times, didn't he? She just about got down. That's what he was saying when somebody's really laughing a lot. She just about got down. Anyway, he was a fun dad. We have a lot of good memories. But after, I'm sorry, hold on. Yeah, after he, I don't know where I'm going, y'all.
It's harder than it looks.
It is. And Kelly and I have been so busy that we didn't even have time to do this until today. Anyway, he's helped me tremendously. He used to babysit Olivia, and you know, when I was working, and he helped. He was always just there for us. I think that's what I was trying to go. He was always there for us. And then when we moved to Paradise, and we had lots of animals, 4 horses, 7 chickens, 3 dogs, 7 cats. Am I missing anybody?
A snake. Oh,
yeah.
snake.
Anyway, so, you know, when you have that many animals, you really can't go anywhere. You know, you just really can't go on vacation. I mean, who can you ask to take care of that many animals? It's not, you know, it's not like you can just have one dog and go put it at the kennel or whatever. I mean, that takes a special person that's a commitment, you know. And he used to, you know, Shane and I could go on vacation, and we didn't have to worry, and he was always there for us. And You know, I can remember locking my keys out of locking myself out of the house, and Shane would be out of town, which he usually is, and calling Dad because he had an extra key, and that was his idea. I wasn't planning on giving him one, but he insisted that, you know, that he have a key, so he had a key to my house. And he's just been a big, tremendous help to me and to Shane, and he was a very, always a people person. He's always been a people person. He got most friendly in high school. He was class president. The silly, you know, the craziness. He always had silly hats and crazy Halloween costumes. He used to have a T-shirt that said "Still crazy after all these years." You remember that? And, you know, she told about all his nicknames, but he also had a lot of nicknames. He also gave out a lot of nicknames. So, you know, my friends, Kelly's friends, of course, all of us and everything. I'm not telling mine because it's weird, but anyway, not everybody understands it, do it. Anyway,
Oh, yeah, that one, yeah.
you remember? Okay.
Well, I thought that too.
Anyway, he was not a fan of authority. Dad just balked authority. It was just, you know, he tended to be more of a friend to the jail inmate than to the police. I mean, you know, he was, you know, I'm not saying he was going around breaking all the time, sometimes, but he, you know, I'm not trying to say he was a criminal, but he was, he just had a special affection for, I mean, he used to, and I don't mean to step on Larry Gober's toes, because I know you're probably going to mention this, but, you know, he used to visit people in prison, and he put money on their books, and, I mean, anyway, testify for him, as a character witness for trials and stuff like that. People that you know, he knew from AA mostly, so, anyway, so yeah, I'm going to talk about music. I'm almost done, actually. Okay, so I'm going to talk about music. Yeah, all the artists that Kelly was saying, and I remember also, you know, Charlie Pride and Ray Price and some of those. Freddie Fender, he loved Freddie Fender. He had excellent taste in music, you know what I mean? Like, and it didn't have to be like one specific genre. I mean, he just appreciated good, you know, if it was a good song, then it didn't matter if it was, you know, country or rock and roll. And he loved Cajun. He used to go to the Crawfish Festival all the time up in Louisiana. And anyway, he was a big influence on my passion. I think we both shared a passion for music and for, you know, being moved by music and being moved by songs. And you know, my first memory is that he had a Living in John album. It was a country album. And I named my daughter after Olivia, so obviously I was a pretty big fan, still am. We lost her, but anyway. I think Glenn, my cousin Glenn Hughes is back there, I think he might have given Dad that album. Is that right? The Living in John album? Oh, he can't hear me, okay. Anyway, I think he gave that album to my dad, because it seems like, remember my dad saying that, yeah, Glenn Hughes gave me this. But anyway, I started listening to that song, to her album, and I would just play it over and over and over and over and over. And I wanted to sound like her so bad, and I would just sit there and sing it and keep trying to sound like her. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't sound like Living in John. But anyway, he finally, you know, he ended up giving me that album. But I was 5 years old, so and I remember going, you know, down the road with him, listening to his 8-tracks in the car. And Marty Robbins is probably the biggest, yeah, like Kelly said. When I met Shane, Shane had a similar taste in music as my dad. He liked the old classic country, still does. And Shane and I had not been dating very long. And I remember driving down the road in his pickup, and El Paso was playing. He might have had a cassette. Did you have a cassette? Anyway, because it was playing on the radio, I guess. But anyway, so Shane likes to sing. He's not the best singer, but he's pretty anyway, but he was singing, he was singing that song. He was serenading me, and I was, you know, on the passenger side, and he's just, you know, I remember looking over at me. We'd probably been dating a couple months, maybe a little bit more, but I was already pretty pretty infatuated, but we hadn't said the love word or anything like that. But I don't know how long it had been. But anyway, he's looking over at me. He starts singing, you know, down in the old Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl, and I just knew that was the moment that I knew that I was in love with him, you know. And so they say, you know, you marry your dad, and I said Shane might take offense by that, but you know, I don't know, you know, that's kind of cool because, you know, that was what cinched it, you know. And anyway, I just want to say that, you know, what Dad liked when we were growing up, he more than made up for it after he got sober. And you know, he just adored, you know, as Gil's heard, you know, and most of you already know, he just adored Olivia. And I think he felt like Olivia was a second chance, you know. He even sometimes would accidentally call her Paige. Did you know that? You've heard him say that, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was just really, really a huge blessing to have him in our lives and to have him sober for all those years. And he was a pain in the rear so much of the time, but we still love him, and some of those things that used to drive us crazy, we're gonna wish we could complain about it now, you know. Kelly saying, was it you, one of y'all said, you know, talking about some of his hygiene habits, and yeah, you're gonna miss that someday. I think it was Kelly. She said, yeah, you're gonna miss that someday, you know. And I said, I don't know, you know. But anyway, I think that's, yeah. I just wanted to say one more thing. So I got through singing at church, because, you know, I said we all went to church together, and I'd done a solo at a church that it was friendship, actually, with just like a sister church to this church. Anyway, somebody came up and was talking to me and him after the service and said, well, Bob, you know, where did she get her music from? Did she get that from you? And he said, no, I can't take credit for that. But I said, yeah, but, you know, but he's the reason that I have such a love for music. And he played the guitar. He did play the guitar, but yeah, that's all, y'all. Anyway, just thank y'all for coming, and I know we're all gonna really miss him, and I know all y'all loved him, and it means a whole lot to us that you're here. Thank you.
Oh. Tell them.
Yeah, when we're talking about how we're gonna do this, Kelly wanted to do this, and I said, well, but I want to talk about the other two songs. So she said, well, but then we're going to be talking over each other. I said, no, you do these songs, and I'll do these songs, and it'll be like the Academy Awards. So here we are. So you go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, we've, I think, thoroughly talked about his love of music, and so after Mom and Lance were killed, you know, just a little over 2 years apart, and Dad started, had a little bit of narcissism, you know, kind of, it's all about him sometimes, you know, and so he started just obsessively saying, I want this at my funeral, I want this at my funeral, talk a lot, like, right, and then, oh, I found a headstone I like, it's like, okay, anyway, so part of that was, so like 20 years ago, he told us the songs that he wanted at his funeral. And so we've had note of that, and they haven't changed. So I was looking, I had them in my phone, Paige had it somewhere else, but I had them in my phone. I brought them up when we had unexpectedly, he went ahead and went a little sooner than we thought. I'm like, okay, well, and I thought there were more because of his love of music. I thought there were going to be a bunch of songs, and had to talk about how we're going to incorporate them. So it turns out there were only 3. Which is kind of surprising. So this is the ones that are important to him. So the first one was, it's called Wigwam by Caravelli Orchestra. And these are the songs that are gonna be, you're gonna be hearing in the slideshow. And Paige and I just wanted to tell you guys in advance so that you're hearing, because it's a beautiful instrumental song, but we wanted to tell you the reason behind it. So Wigwam, back when we lived in the Rome house, back in the early 70s, Mom and Dad were in bed one night and had the clock radio on, the digital clock radio on with the music, and this song came on, and apparently Dad was just blown away, had never heard it before. What is that beautiful, you know? I mean, he said it to Mom, you know, that's just the most, and he talked about it later too. He absolutely loved the song. So, got up, wrote down exactly what time it was on the digital, you know, clock radio, 11:24, whatever, and called the radio station in Dallas the next day and said, I was listening to your station last night, and at exactly this time, what was that song? And so they told them. So it was called Wigwam by Caravelli Orchestra. I think it's a French thing or whatever. Anyway, so it is a beautiful instrumental song. And he looked for it for ever and ever. He'd always go in old record stores and, you know, always, really until recently, he still did that. Yeah, it's gonna be the first song that you hear. But Nina Bell, his beloved sister, the one just older than him, and Christina's here today, her daughter, she passed away recently at 92. But she was just so resourceful and so had a real sophisticated side and able to locate things. And anyway, she found it in an old record store or something and gave it to him for Christmas that year. And you can imagine how overjoyed he was. So that is in his record collection. So with our specific notes, and make sure these are at our funeral, he told us exactly which album they're on, where to find them in his record collection. Well, thankfully, it turned into Olivia just downloading them for us, and Adrian, you know, we didn't have to go dig through the albums or anything. So that's gonna be the first song that you hear. It's just a beautiful instrumental. And then the next one, get your Kleenexes out for the next one. It's called If She or If You Could Only See Me Now by T. Graham Brown. And, you know, I had it in there on the thing forever, for probably 20 years. And I don't think I hadn't heard of it. I think Paige is familiar with him, but I'd never heard of the song. I just had a little note. It's about a man who turned his life around. So we played it the other night in preparation for, you know, putting all this together, and Paige and we just absolutely lost it and bawled, because we feel like it's a tribute to Mom, you know, because I don't want to, you know, don't give it away, but anyway, so that's what that's about. And then, well, the other one was amazing. Can I say that now, or?
No, that's fine.
Okay, all right.
You can tell about that
Oh, yeah. So, okay, so we ended up replacing one in the slideshow. We added one that was his most recent obsession that he was streaming all the time. He would find one, like he discovered, I had a dream. I have a dream by ABBA. I came home one day and he was like, I heard this most beautiful song. And he starts playing, I'm like, yeah, that's ABBA. But anyway, he played that one over and over and over and over and over. No, that's not it. We decided that wasn't appropriate. But anyway, it's another instrumental, and it's by Blake Norman. And I was sitting up here and left it back there. Olivia, do you remember the name of it? Anyway, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Oh, Spanish Fandango. Thank you. I could not remember. It's called Spanish Fandango, but it popped up. You know, sometimes well, how did you find that? I don't know. It just popped up, and so that was the one. He had to have played this one thousands of times and sending it to people and playing it to nurses. Here, you got to hear this. So we added that one on the slideshow too, that you'll see in just a moment. We can say something about Adrian Dewey too.
Yes, yeah.
She'll do it now.
I'll do it at the end.
Okay.
Cause I only have two songs left.
Okay. I'll even it out.
They'll even it out. So the Amazing Grace that I sang was, I recorded that in a recording studio when my brother passed away, and because I knew I wouldn't be able to sing it live, and so I recorded it, and they played that at my brother's funeral, and Dad was just, you know, Dad just, he loved it, of course, and he just, he could not, he said he couldn't listen to it for 10 years or something. He couldn't even listen to it. He said he just would lose it, so, and he had said, he told us quite a while back that he wanted that to be played at his funeral, and then, oh yeah, the song that he'll haven't heard yet is, Angel Band, and, I did that at a funeral. Shane's best friend passed away almost 2 years ago, and I did that at his funeral, and of course I sent him the link for the video, and he had seen it, a couple of years ago, and then it wasn't too long ago, I think I sent it to him again, just because I ran across it, and I just sent it to him again on Messenger, and he was at Kelly's house, and Kelly, he was always sitting there streaming most of the day, and Kelly heard it, and Kelly hadn't heard it, and
I was doing something else.
she was doing something else, and she heard it playing, and she said, "Is that Paige?" And he said, "Mm-hmm." And so anyway, he sat there and just watched it, the whole thing, and so I think we just kind of decided that was probably a sign to go ahead and have that, today, and also the words are appropriate too.
It's
So
a
yeah.
great funeral song.
Yeah, so that's it. And we want to thank our cousins Dewey and Adrian Valheimer. They live in Vermont and they couldn't attend, but they they both prepared the slideshow and the music and everything. We were at crunch time, yeah. We're not going to go into all the
Okay,
details.
but we weren't gonna meet our deadline with the funeral home. It was 2 a.m., it was due at 10.
I guess we are going to.
No, just,
Yeah.
just they saved us, and also just so much to be.
I'm kidding, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just so indebted to them. I mean,
Yeah.
we feel so, hopefully you guys enjoy it, but we know it's mainly for us as a, comfort, we just feel really good about the slideshow, and going through all these, that as it turned out to be thousands of photos. We didn't know we had that many, and so, trying to, narrowing them down and getting it, and all of that, and they just did it. They went far beyond what we would have gotten from the funeral home, because they did it with love, and they moved a couple years ago back to Vermont. They lived down the road in Paradise for years, and then brought up grandkids, and they said, well, we love having the opportunity to do this because we're not able to be there. So hope you enjoy it.
Just
Just
wanted to shout
a
out.
fraction as much as we enjoy.
We just want to shout out to them and say thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
gonna make this short because I sat in a lot of meetings with Bob and he'd poke me and say, wrap it up, wrap it up. So I'm gonna make it short and sweet. I love Bob. He's my friend. Excuse me. I was in Harrington working when Kelly called me, and I got about another week's worth of work up there, and I had to come. I'm gonna tell you that guy loved you. I'm sorry, more than anybody. Bob was coming from a meeting in Wichita Falls with a friend of mine. Just took him to a convention up there, a AA convention, and they were coming back, and these motorcycles had these flashing lights. The headlights flashed all the time. And one got behind him, and he thought he was doing it to make him mad, hurry him up. So he scoots over and gets this motorcycle rider off in the ditch. The motorcycle rider comes back and shows him a badge. It's a cop. So they pulled him over to Decatur and gave him a ticket. And the guy that was riding with him told me, he said, I ain't going any place with him ever again. So he, and the other Bob was Water Bob too, because he lived behind the Whataburger parking lot on Beach Street in Fort Worth. I knew him too. I've known Bob 33 years, and we've been friends 31 of those years. First 2 years we didn't get along real good, because Bob has a bad habit of too much information sometimes, you know. But one of the things that he said, and this was, gosh, probably 20 years ago, I heard him speaking in a meeting, and he said that what he was trying to do with the drinking was take the path of less resistance. And what he realized was the path of less resistance makes crooked rivers and crooked men. And that's what he changed. I was one of the first guys that called when Lance got killed, and we shared that. 5 years later, my grandson got killed, and he helped me through that. So, all the bad and all the good in that guy, there was a lot more good, a lot more. Because if you didn't know Bob's heart, if you didn't know Bob, he was a good man, and he made up the best you could for the past. But he told me, he said, I cannot undo the past. All I can do is be a better grandfather, a better son than I ever was. And he was that. And I loved him as my friend.
You've been sitting a long time. They appreciate your patience. We're almost done. I'll be less than 5 minutes. Promise, promise. It's 4:25 right now. We'll be on the last song by 4:30. But I just, when I was asked about having a funeral here, I said, we just really have one requirement. We don't charge anything. We just want to be a blessing to people. But it's required that we give the gospel. Because at the time that somebody dies, the amount of good or bad they did, anybody that dies, you can put a big list of both. They had problems, they had good. But God says nobody can get into heaven unless they're perfect. And everybody, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. It's not like there's a lot of people think there's a little list here of the good stuff and the bad stuff. Everybody's in heaven, that's in heaven got there the same way, by accepting Jesus' death on the cross for our sins. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. See, death in the end of it. At the time you die, You're going to go to heaven or hell. There's nowhere else to go, and it all depends on what you've done with Jesus Christ. I'm glad Robert accepted Jesus. I know he did that young and got baptized in the Church of Christ at a young age. As he got older, he was over at Friendship Baptist Church, and he had some questions, and he prayed, and he got baptized again, just to be sure. And so by his testimony, he accepted Jesus. And the moment he breathed his last breath, as the pastor said, he went directly into the presence of God in heaven. John 3:18 makes it clear. See, not everybody goes to heaven. He that believeth on him, on Jesus, is not condemned, but he that believeth not, he is condemned already, because he hath not believed on the name of the only begotten Son of God. John 3:36 says, he that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him. Romans 10:9, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and believe in thine heart that God raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. And I've said this, there's nobody lived good enough that they can go to heaven without Jesus. And there's nobody evil enough that they can't go to heaven with Jesus. The Bible says, whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. You know, life's short. Robert Bob lived 88 years. That's a long time by our standards. It still gets going quickly. In time like this, the most important thing I could say today is be sure you've accepted Jesus. I can't think of anything more important to do. If you hadn't done that, do that today. Thank y'all, family. I'm going to say a prayer, and then we're going to have a song sung by Paige. And when it's over, no more talking. You're done, okay? And feel free to stay and visit. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the life of Robert Rowland. Thank you for this family. Ask that you bless them. Just pray, Lord, that you would help touch everyone's heart here that maybe has not accepted you as Savior to do so. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for Jesus. You're our hope in a time like this. Lord, thank you for all that you've done for us in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, right after this is the last song. When it quits playing, you're dismissed.
You